The best part about video games is that heroes can come in all different shapes, sizes, and, well, types of wardrobe. In the case of Gauguin, who was out to save his childhood friend Flair in the Legendaryaxe, a little piece of animal skin is the only thing covering his sensitive areas. Luckily, he has the amazing ability to color coordinate, as this covering matches his hair and weapon handle. What a stud. This hip-to-the-latest fashion hero must rescue Flair from the clutches of the evil Jagu, a half-man, half-beast resident cult leader who is using her as today's sacrifice. Unfortunately, good looks alone won't get the girl, so the elders of the village loan Gauguin a special weapon called the Legendaryaxe in order to help with his quest. Now, Gauguin must head to the evil place, a place that's evil, in the hopes to rescue the damsel in distress. Legendaryaxe was a rather high-profile game for its time and one of the best early side-scrolling action games for the TurboGrafx. In fact, it was Video Game and Computer Entertainment's 1989 Game of the Year. While I don't feel it deserved that distinction, it is a great game, showing off the early capabilities of the Turbo. Now, what makes Gauguin's Legendaryaxe so legendary is the ability for it to charge up. The longer you don't use the axe, the more charge it has when eventually released onto an enemy. The maximum charge can also be increased as you find this power-up amongst the handful of others located in idols or just left behind. Thank goodness, because your attack is extremely cheesy at the game's beginning. This charging adds a bit of strategy. In some cases, it might be best to just hack away at an enemy at high speed. In others, it's worth the few seconds of waiting and patience as one giant charged-up slash can slice an enemy apart in an instant. Now, the game does remove some of Gauguin's charge upon his death. I'm not a big fan of this aspect of the game, especially in later levels. Luckily, they do place an upgrade not too far from the continue point. Figuring out how to appropriately use the axe is essential as it is your only weapon. But it never seems to get tedious and actually is quite fun and satisfying, especially at full charge. There are a total of 5 zones, and similar to Bonk's Adventure, they are not all the same length. It is a bit surprising to find out how far the zones will stretch out. The final zone is comprised of a ton of stages, laid out in a puzzle landscape forcing some good old-fashioned memorization. There are also some hidden areas to find with fake floors or invisible walls. The enemies in Legendaryaxe all have sort of a pattern and require a slight learning curve just as an end boss would. This is a very addictive part of the game as you have to find the best strategy for defeating them all. For example, Amoeba, fast, well-timed axe swipes. Rockman, multiple crouching attack. Creepy guys with giant creepy swords, 2 nicely timed full-charged swipes. Bingo. Speaking of enemies, Legendaryaxe has the strangest combination I've ever seen. Tarantulas, bears, nomads, frogmen, stupid bats that knock you around over and over and over again. Oh, and the monkeys. Don't get me started on the monkeys. Ugh, get off of me. And let's not forget the scariest of them all, the giant boulder. Look at that. It's coming back. It knows your face. It's alive. Damn. The good news is when you defeat an enemy, they literally explode. All of them. Even the rocks. Heh, now that is justice. Legendaryaxe looks interesting from a color and animation aspect right away. Elegant might be a good word for it. It has no real dimension or anything, but some location effects look really nice. There is a lot of diversity, but by the 4th zone, you'll notice enemies and some graphics will begin to repeat themselves quite often. Sometimes they're just slightly recolored. The music is pretty good. It has that jungle feel. I always thought it sounded nice, but the sound effects are a slight step down. The control is extremely responsive and the game plays pretty well. Since it's a typical platformer, you'll have to time jumps perfectly, swing on vines with accuracy, and be able to dodge at a moment's notice. This is all possible and executed well. However, I did always feel Gauguin moved a little too slow. Legendaryaxe only gives you 3 extra continues to defeat the game. This adds a little bit of replay value as you will not defeat it in one pass. On your first play, you'll breeze through the first zone without a problem. But the difficulty and learning curve structure definitely ramps up, especially in the 3rd zone. You'll find those continues disappearing rather quickly. The game can get frustrating, and some of the zones aren't as well balanced as others, but it does have a certain charm, and that is what will keep you coming back, even though the boulders, the bats, and the sweet little tiny butterflies all want you dead. While it is not the most original game, as it stems from traditional action platform roots, Legendaryaxe is definitely one of the great ones from the early years of the TurboGrafx. I truthfully feel it would have made a great pack-in game in the system's early launch. It just goes to show that being good-looking and fashionable doesn't mean a damn thing if you don't have an axe to accentuate the style. I give it 4 TurboChips out of 5 because, quite frankly, any game that has giant boulders on a killing spree must be fun to play.